right, Saturday evening, and the big story is, of course, Nate making landfall on the Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama coast. It's not quite to the coast yet. I think we've got about 4 or 5 more hours left. But we are pretty warm here in this part of Texas. I think we hit near 90 earlier. But fortunately, things are going to start cooling down here very shortly. There's the current map, and we can see Nate just southeast of New Orleans. And the highest wind speed I'm seeing here is 52 knots. That's going to be right around 59 miles an hour. And there in New Orleans, we're only showing a north wind at about 10, gusting to 18 knots. So obviously this is not going to be a major storm there for New Orleans. Let's take a look elsewhere around the country this evening. Pretty quiet there in the desert southwest. The winds have come around to the southwest once again through that area. Very dry conditions, dew points around the single digits there in Arizona. Even in the San Joaquin Valley, only 30s and a few teens and 20s there. But as we go northward into the Pacific Northwest, looks like we got a little bit of fresh, cool air moving in. Northwesterly flow there through Idaho, Boise, and down through Medford. The temperatures, however, have come up in Nevada, 78, 73. So it appears we're regenerating a new boundary somewhere in this area. If we take a look at the potential temperature, we should be able to find where that is. So basically, along an axis from about here to here, very significant change in potential temperature. And then we have 87 there at Red Bluff, so I think we can pretty much put that boundary right through Northern California into around Mountain Home and then up to Yellowstone. And then we can pick the boundary up there in the Northern Plains. Let me switch the map around. Get that recentered. Okay. Boundary there through northern Wyoming. And it appears that continues down through the Pierre area as a warm front and possibly southward through northern Kansas. We can see 71 there on the high plains. And that contrast, you can see a very similar temperature between western Kansas and Iowa. See that 67 right there and 71 there. But the main difference there is potential temperature. Because if this air comes down to the surface from that higher elevation, it's going to warm up. And by the time you get to this elevation, around Falls City, you're going to be up to about 82 or 83 degrees. So with this downslope component here, I think we're looking at a front either here or possibly a little further west, one of the two. And there in Texas, where we're at, looks like a northerly flow. And then we pick up a upper-level ridge from Oklahoma City down through I-44, down to about Vernon. And then southerly flow up north of that ridge there. And then there's one more look at the Gulf Coast. We've got a little bit of a southerly component redeveloping now, and that's due to the effects there of Nate coming inland. And then further north, we've got more of an influence from polar air through this area here, and we can see a little bit of evaporation of cooled air in North Carolina. So I think reasonably we could put a front through this area here, eastern Georgia, and then that could come up to the Ohio Valley like this. So let's see here. We've actually got very similar temperature profiles from Alabama all the way up to Ohio. So I think what we may be seeing is a little bit of this here, a little bit of cold air damming in the Carolinas right there. And then that becomes a warm front once we get up to Pennsylvania and Ontario. Okay, so that is one potential solution right there. Let me bring this up a little further north, and you can see that warmer air there in Cleveland and Detroit. So that's the reason I'm putting a warm front around all of that right there. And then when we go further westward, there's all the cold air right there. So that's some of the polar air coming from Canada and moving through the Midwest area. Okay, for a look at the hurricane, we can go over to NHC, and the latest bulletin we have, 7 p.m., we have a Category 1 storm. The wind speed and pressure have come down a little bit. The pressure from 981 to 982, and the sustained winds down about 5 knots from about 4 hours ago. And the rest of the movement of the storm is going to bring the circulation up to Alabama, and then right up the Appalachians through the remainder of Sunday and Monday. So I would expect to see some heavy rains there through Alabama and then up to Kentucky. Earlier today, this is what the storm looked like. Don't see an eye underneath all that overcast, and that's pretty common with these weaker hurricanes. Just kind of a cloudy, cirrus overcast in that region. But we can take a look at the radar. Let me bring that up. And this is using a radar scope. So this is one way of observing the storm, and if we run the animation, we can see the circulation drifting northward. So underneath all of this overcast, it looks like there's a little bit of a weak eye where there's some drier air, but it's just not resolvable with the satellite data at this time. Looks like that's heading north up towards the Gulfport, Biloxi area, in a pretty good cloud shield. And of course, in the left front quadrant, which is going to be this area right here, this is where we're going to be expecting to find enough shear for tornadoes. So we do have a few tornado, I think we have one tornado watch out for that area. Checking to see if we can bring up the watches. There is a tornado warning up there north of Mobile, but I guess we can't bring up watches on GR level or on radar scope here. So, okay. Also, I do have lightning on this, so I'm zooming in and taking a look, and I don't think we have any lightning activity. I would expect this stuff to have lightning, but can't tell what's going on there. Kind of wish it would show whether the data is missing or if no lightning is being reported. Okay, so anyway, that's the summary there using radar scope. Then we can go ahead and tie that in with the potential temperature. And there we see that front up in the northwest United States and coming down through Wyoming right there. So I think using this map, we can probably bring the warm front certainly down through Kansas like that right there. So this is going to be the next system coming southeastward or eastward. And there's the old system right there moving through the Midwest. And behind that frontal system, we've got ridging back here through Texas. And then this area here, this is all warm air advection ahead of the next system coming in from Montana there. And then checking that out with the thickness chart. Yeah, Pacific system showing up very well right there. And then the Midwest system, not so resolvable. We can pick out the cold front, but the warm front is almost indistinguishable, and it looks like possibly the true warm front is well up to the north. So let's check that out. This here does look like an air mass contrast, so I would certainly draw this on while doing a mesoscale analysis, because, you know, that this is definitely going to be a boundary here where we could see convection on a storm day. But it looks like the main synoptic scale boundary, certainly that's further up north. So let's see, 77 there in Pennsylvania, but it does drop off to 72, and we've got to go with the southward position on that warm front. So maybe I would keep that boundary there in the Carolinas distinct, because you have upper 70s through here and 80 in Ohio. So this area here is just kind of surrounded. This is probably a bit of a MCS cold pool in that area. So going up the coast there, 76 at Roanoke, or at Richmond, 76 around Philadelphia, 77 in Pennsylvania, and 66. So this is actually where it starts cooling off. So that's kind of how you would go about placing the warm front on this system right here. And then further up north, yeah, you do get deeper and deeper in the cold air mass right there. And the cloud conditions actually increase in coverage and extent as you go northward due to that overrunning effect there. Okay, elsewhere around the country, I guess we'll take a look at the mesoscale map for the Gulf Coast here. And this should give us a little bit of a look there at the hurricane coming up during the day. And you can see a little bit of positioning error there on the NAM model. So by evening, we were looking for that to come up straight for New Orleans. But actually, it's turned out to come more towards the Gulfport area. So if we're using a model like this, we would just kind of adjust it. So instead of taking the remnants up towards the Alabama-Mississippi state line, we would go a little bit further east with that and bring our path kind of like that right there. But as far as the large-scale picture, like the ridging back around Texas and Oklahoma, that should be pretty much exactly as shown here. Some very cool air tonight there in the Texas Panhandle, some 50s and low 60s there in Oklahoma, but this area is going to be under a warm air advection pattern for tomorrow. And then for tomorrow night when we do the webcast, very deep southerly flow all the way up to Oklahoma and Kansas. Back in behind that, we're going to have pretty much ridging all the way back to the east. So very strong Bermuda high in place and just minimal effects from that outgoing hurricane. So that will leave some boundaries back in behind. So for Louisiana, That might be in effect later during the day, but as far as the large-scale synoptic picture, we will be bringing deep tropical flow into Texas and Oklahoma for the start of the week. Okay, so 70s for lows, and then we go right back up to 80s and 90s for Monday. And look at that, some very strong downslope flow southwest of Fort Worth right there. That's very typical ahead of approaching systems. In fact, let me go back and compare that. You can see the previous day, you can see the wind component was a little bit more easterly. So that's a little bit of an upslope pattern, and you're going to have a little bit of adiabatic cooling. But the next day, when the winds come around to the southwest, we have downslope, which warms things up by several degrees above normal. So we're going to be looking for 92 San Angelo to Fort Worth, and maybe even a little bit warmer, maybe a few 97s, 98s there. And then the next cold front coming southward, 49 there in Amarillo, and even 30s in Colorado. Okay, we'll take a look at a sounding. Okay, we've already gone over much of this. This is the North American weather picture, and we are generating a lot of polar air way up north. I'm seeing minus 17 Celsius way up there along the Arctic coast there, which is going to be single digits in Fahrenheit. As a result, we are generating a very large long wave pattern there over the northern American coast. And let's see, I'm trying to find the soundings here. There we go. Okay, we'll take a look at Fort Worth there. Looks like we've already got pulled up. Okay, so Fort Worth, pretty dry air mass right now. So as a result, we've got all those clear skies that you saw on the opening animation, and even in the mid-level, some very warm temperatures aloft, close to pretty much 50-degree temperatures all the way up to 14,000 feet, which is very warm there. Down below, you can see an almost dry adiabatic lapse right there, and that's showing the very strong air mass modification with that last cold front that came through. And then further up north, we can take a look at Dodge City. Very similar picture there with very warm conditions aloft and modifying air in the low levels. And then if we take it all the way up to North Platte, a little bit cooler there, and it's starting to look a little bit more like the air north of a front there. See, that looks like the top of a cold air mass there. So that may be what's happening a little bit further south. Let me go back to Dodge City there. Yeah, even looking at Fort Worth there, this kind of has the picture of a cold air mass near the surface, but which is modifying from the bottom up. Let's take a quick look at Shreveport there. Okay, Shreveport looks a little bit more tropical. You can see the dew points there in the mid-60s. In the lowest 5,000 feet there, and then above that there's a moist adiabatic lapse right there. Okay, let's check out the infrared imagery, and there's Nate coming up towards the Gulfport coastline. And taking a look at chat there, we've got Carl Berghoff back to 8 p.m. Missed a few nights. Yeah, I've been advertising the new time there for a few days. If you go to the video listings, usually there's some information in there about changes. Fun with Tech is with us, and Burl H. and Veo Joe, 70 degrees there in Illinois. Yeah, we're 78 here still. Things are very warm. Temperature's way above normal in our area of Texas here. Ryan Toomey's joining us there, says Nate is almost a Category 2 storm, or was, but it fell apart once it hit the cooler waters off the south coast of Louisiana. The storm blew up pretty good late last night into early this morning. And also, Ryan is mentioning Madison, Wisconsin, hit by a small tornado with trees and home structure damage, EF1. So I'm looking at a strong front going through southern Indiana right now, very gusty all day. And expecting Nate up that way. Tree Nelson is here, and yep, there's Carl there. Justin Polium noticing the tornado warnings coming out. Veo Joe heard there was some hail. It's not very common for tropical storms because usually they're kind of buried in the subtropical ridge, and that means that the freezing levels are up at about 15,000 feet. So to get a hailstone coming down from 15,000 feet, you need either a lot of instability to make the hailstones really large, or you have to bring the freezing level down. And typically with these landfalling storms, we don't have either. The instabilities, they tend to be about like maybe 500 to 1,000 Cape, maybe no more than that. And the freezing level on this, in fact, we can actually look at that. Here's the Slidell, Louisiana sounding. So this temperature line, that's shifted way over to the right because it's a very warm air mass. And we're looking for the zero line, and that crosses over right here. And that's going to put it right at about 16,000 feet there. So what we're looking for is the wet bulb temperature. Yeah, you can see how the wet bulb tends to fall in right between the dew point and the temperature, kind of like that right there. So the entire, the height of the wet bulb freezing level is, yeah, it's going to be right around 16,000. So the entire time the hailstone comes down, it's going to be melting there. And with the wet bulb being so high, it's going to melt pretty quickly as it falls down through that layer. Okay, Ryan is looking at minor tornadoes and waterspouts on the east side of Brett, blowing into Alabama and Florida coastal regions. The east side of Brett. Okay. I'm just looking quickly through the chat here. Pressure's dropped to 29.28 in northern Wisconsin this afternoon. Had a nice comet cloud there on the visible satellite. Hurricane Nate moved fast going north instead of having time to linger in the Gulf. Yeah, it really crossed the Gulf amazingly quickly. We were looking at it way down here yesterday, and it crossed all that distance there in just 24 hours. Very hot where Ryan is. Duane says no lightning in Nate. 82 degrees, wow. Made it feel like 98 outside. Justin's asking about the digital atmosphere station plot settings. Is that posted online? I don't know, I'm just using the default settings there and making slight adjustments. We've got Mike Bexley joining us, and Electric Dog, and, okay, Brett, Alabama. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, great. Anyway, yeah, just one cold top right there near Boothville, and other than that, just kind of looks like it's got the resemblance of a kind of a big MCS there. So we'll look at the forecast and check out the weather over the next 24 hours. And we can take a look at the high-resolution rapid refresh model. So we're going to see the system basically crossing Boothville right there and moving straight up to Gulfport. And so we're going to be looking at landfall right around here. This is going to be around 1 in the morning. So it's still got to cross this bay area right there. And then we'll be seeing landfall there. But already much of the circulation is over land at this time. And there it is moving northward. Let me see if I can get some central pressures. I don't know if I'm going to read that. That's like red on red. Okay, I think I see 987 there. So that's current 986, 87, 87, 86, 88. So it looks like it'll maintain its current intensity, and then right around here at about 1 in the morning, we will see that start to wreck the circulation significantly. Now it's up to 989, and then coming inland, you can see there 990, 991, 992. So now the circulation is really starting to fill there. So by tomorrow during the day, we'll see that up in northern Alabama, and likely some thunderstorms in western Georgia and eastern Alabama there, with probably some residual shear causing some continued severe weather problems in that area. One thing that's kind of cool to look at is the precipitable water. So you can see it bringing in all that moisture. And then by 21Z tomorrow, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's moving up to northeast Alabama. So probably some good thunderstorms throughout that area. And then the circulation will move up through West Virginia overnight tomorrow night. And then the moisture starts to surge northward in the Mississippi River Valley. Another splinter of it there in Texas. And then for Monday, that'll advect northward into the Midwest. So coming up there into Indiana and Illinois for Tuesday and Wednesday. And you can see some of it even surging northward through Minnesota into Ontario there. Then some more of it coming northward in the Rio Grande there later in the week. And it really starts building up. Precipitable waters coming up to about 1.5 inches in Texas. And with all this available water, that's going to mean a lot of latent heat for the next system that's coming through. So we'll probably see some development on that. Yeah, there it comes together. And then occluding, you can see the occlusion right there as the dry slot comes in the backside for next Tuesday. And then the next front coming southward there. A lot of dry advection there, and then the next moist surge comes up for Wednesday the 18th. So it's kind of like watching waves on a beach there. So there's the next system right there, dry slot underway for the 23rd. And then you see the old occlusion right there and the new baroclinic zone there in Ontario there. So pretty good front, back behind it on the 23rd. So what's that going to mean in terms of temperatures? Well, we can take a look at temperature plots and, for example, Monday. There's Monday's temperatures. You can see close to 90 there in Texas on Monday, all the way up to St. Louis, and then during the nighttime, 50s and 40s for Oklahoma. So are we above normal or below normal? I mean, you can see 50s there at nighttime, and then 80s during the day. A simpler way to kind of work this out is with temperature anomaly. And the temperature anomaly product looks like this. So watching the next system approaching, and you remember that was coming in through the panhandle on Monday. There it is. We can see temperatures about 20 degrees below normal in Colorado. So this is the core of the polar air right here on its way southeastward. So going into Monday and Tuesday, that's going to move southward through Texas. And then you'll notice that by Tuesday, lots of areas 5 to 15 degrees below normal across Texas and the Kansas, Oklahoma area. So Tuesday is going to be the cold day right here, but very rapid air mass modification. So look at that. By Wednesday, only 5 to 10 degrees below normal in Texas there. And then by Thursday, the air mass has warmed up quite a bit. And this is the remnants of that old cold air mass there on Thursday. Center of it right there over Arkansas. And now it's gone. But the next system is on its way in through California and Nevada later this week, Friday, going into Saturday. So we can use this anomaly product to track the progress because it is not sensitive to diurnal change. So we can track it through the day and nighttime hours there. And we can place the front, so front possibly through this area here. So the core of the polar air is likely going to be over Nevada and California this weekend. Very warm temperatures in Illinois and Iowa and Wisconsin over the weekend. Now the cold air starts to move across the Rockies going into next Monday, about a week from now. And now it starts spreading into the plains. But as you can see, a lot of modification there. It's only about 5 to 10 degrees below normal. And it's not as concentrated as what we saw there in Colorado, so it's going to be kind of a mild cold air outbreak there. Then we wait for the next outbreak, and there it is, coming a little further south. 26 degrees below normal there around LA. So this is the weekend, about 2 weeks from now. And very rapid modification with that. It looks like it's disappeared there. So we had it here over the weekend, and then by Monday, very little of it left there. And one thing that I'm noticing on this map here is there's extensive red through the entire map. Like any given instant, there's red all over the place. It's like red is the default. And we should normally have a pretty even balance of red and blue. And I can see red there pretty much all over the place. That kind of leads me to believe maybe the long wave pattern there, maybe height's a little bit higher than normal. But hopefully that doesn't become the trend all winter here. And then we end the map with things, lots of red there towards the 23rd. So that's the forecast there. So no big problems there with Nate coming inland. Maybe some localized flooding, maybe some wind damage, localized also. But Category 1 storm coming inland, it should stay steady as it makes progress towards Gulfport there in Biloxi. And then that'll fall apart there over Alabama. And Alabama will be taking the heaviest brunt of the remains during the day Sunday. Okay, well, I do have to get back to work on the book because I got kind of burned out Thursday night or Friday night, and I fell behind probably about 18 hours of work, and I've got to catch back up on all that. So I'm going to get back to that. And I will go ahead and let you all go. I guess we'll do it again tomorrow night, and hope you all have a good evening. Take care.